Hi, and welcome to the It's a Good Start podcast with your hosts Mike Lander and Kevin Gibbons. The aim of our show is to help scale-up entrepreneurs master the best of what other people have already figured out so that you can unlock your own potential. We started it because we've both been entrepreneurs for over 25 years and wanted to share our knowledge and our guest knowledge. We're all about actionable insights. We want you to take away one or two things per episode that can help you move the ball forward in your business. We really hope you enjoy and keeping it back for more. Garret, thanks for joining us. We've been friends for I don't know how many years now. Wow. Must be 10 years, 15 years?
Closer to 15.
Must be 15, yeah. I remember meeting you on the steps of, I think it was the V&A that we met at.
How interesting, because I was actually at the V&A for the first time in about 7 years yesterday.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. Really loved it, and actually said to myself, why do I come here more often?
Yeah, exactly. You were just coming out and you'd seen an exhibition and you loved it. And we just started chatting. But yeah, so friends for a very long time. You've been in, you've done all sorts, Garret. I mean, I'll let you tell the story, but trained as a vet, then ran your own business and sold that. And why don't you just tell people broadly what that kind of journey looks like to where you are today?
Sure. So, well, as people will pick up from my accent, I come from Northern Ireland, and I came to England when I was 17 to go to university, to vet school. And that was 6 years. And so this was back, I came out of uni in the early 1990s, so many years ago now. I'm incredibly young. And I started work, my final year at university, I attended a lecture from a Canadian professor of pet behavior. And that sounds kind of strange, but at the time that was incredibly radical. And he gave this lecture, and I turned around to my friend, I was sitting beside me, I said, I've seen the future of veterinary medicine and I like it. And this future was people very much seeing their pets as part of the family and humanizing them rather than as agricultural guard dogs or sheep dogs or whatever it was.
Interesting.
And so he and I, that afternoon, agreed that we would go into partnership together as soon as we possibly could once we left university. And that took 4 years. So the pair of us worked every, we didn't really take holidays. We worked evenings, we worked at weekends, and saved up enough money and bought our first practice together in the, I must have been in mid-1995.
Okay.
And that was in West Sussex. And I was working as a veterinary surgeon, but really, I love many aspects of the job, but I am got a very weak stomach, so bad smells actually make me vomit. So that's
not great for a vet.
It's career. No. But also I sensed I had a commerciality, and certainly David, my co-founder, had a real commerciality. And after 2 or 3 years of doing this, we bought another 2 practices, and over the next 10 years, built a business that we sold to trade in 2010 with, I think it was about 30 practices, a laboratory, a referral center. Wow. We were one of the very first consolidators in the UK veterinary space. And obviously that has gone on, across Europe. Australia. It's been a huge global consolidation with some real behemoths of the sector. So for good and for bad, we were part of the ignition for that.
And how did you fund that? So how did you? I mean, I guess people will be interested in. It sounds so easy. You do one, and then you buy 2, and then you buy 4. But how do you fund the first 1 or 2 that you buy?
Well, the first 1 or 2, the first few, actually all of them, we pretty much bootstrapped. So it was bank debt and cash flow and capital. Now, having said that, we did a third partner joined in 2001. So he invested some money. He didn't come from the sector. He joined effectively as our, if we want to split roads up, which he didn't really do, but he was our finance guy and he led the finance structure. but it was bank debt. And, but actually, Mike, back in those days, you were taking on bank debt at like 10%,
Yeah.
and stuff, but actually just very basic bank debt to buy property
Yeah.
and,
Assets
and
secured.
yeah, yeah. And then, but if we could we'd do a sale and lease back
Yeah.
free up so for other acquisitions.
Just talk
in
about
the,
sale and lease back, Garret. Just some people might not know what that means and how it works. What happens?
certainly. So if you've got a limited amount of capital, so you got little cash like us, and let's say you got, for the sake of argument, £100,000, and you buy a business and the property is worth £70,000 and the business is worth 30, then you've paid 100, but that absorbs a lot of your capital. If you can actually then take that property and sell it to somebody else for £70,000 and then lease it off them long term, it reduces your EBITDA certainly, or your profits certainly, rent. But what it does is it frees up
cash
for you to then go and buy another couple of businesses or whatever you want to invest in the business. And that's very important if you're bootstrapping. If you want, some businesses, it's really important to own the properties and have that property portfolio. But otherwise, for us, definitely, we wanted to be asset light and be an operational.
Interesting. Okay. So that was kind of a bit of the core strategy, was basically when you acquire vet practices, do a sale and lease back, free up the capital that allows you to do the next one.
Exactly that.
EBITDA dilution, but it frees up capital to fuel the growth journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you're looking to grow, and what you're actually saying is the value of my business with this money is going to grow faster than the value of property is going to grow. So you're backing yourself being a property investor, and we weren't property investors. So that was our.
Well, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't, like always, whenever we chat, Gareth, I learn things every day. But yeah, of course, if you're looking at properties and you're saying, well, property growth, you might get 3% per annum, maybe, depends on where you're on in the UK, but your business can grow much faster than that. So why would you leave capital in an asset that's growing at 3% when you can grow at 20%?
Yeah, no, but there are circumstances where actually controlling the property is really, really important, and it creates extra value because you do get in some sectors, you see it maybe in social care with if you're selling a portfolio of elderly care homes, as an example, then owning the property will give you a higher multiple on exit. But then you've got to weigh up actually. You could do a sale and lease back on that, free up a huge amount of capital, and then sell the operating business whilst you get a reduced multiple of your EBITDA. Actually, the money you've taken out from here plus the money there is greater than the thing. So it's you've got to think about the sector you're in and work out where is the value for your business and how do you use capital at its most efficient manner. And thing is, over the past 10 years, that hasn't been, it's been up at the top of people's minds, but with interest rates being so low and capital being relatively readily available to most businesses that are profitable, then actually you haven't really needed to be as efficient as you might now need to be when you're looking at interest rates. So swap rates on 5-year, interest rates are at 5.5%. So you've got to think that it's going to get more costly to have debt. So what do you do to grow above the pace of your cost of capital? That's what you need to do.
Okay, interesting. So what happened then? So you got to how many vet practices did you have in the end in the group?
I think it was about 30. And we sold those to a trade buyer. And as part of that deal, I exited so one of my partners stayed on. He still is a veterinary surgeon and has his own practice now and is incredibly happy doing that. Again. And but myself and our finance guy exited immediately.
Right.
And which was perfect, I think, for me in that I can't speak for the other guys, but it's perfect for me because I'd kind of sensed that I'd done it and I was interested in looking at new challenges. And so selling the business was kind of a release, not just the fact that we got paid for it, which was fantastic, but actually it allowed me to start thinking about other things I wanted to do. And that, that was actually terrifying as well because, I was in my early 40s and I went from one day thinking I was really important, powerful to the next
Yep.
being guy walking down the street to pick up the milk and, having no identity. And it was interesting just
And
that
just
cycle.
talk about that. So I think, again, a lot of people, I'd like to ask you about also the transaction, the earn out, deferred consideration, all that kind of stuff. But just like mentally, what happens when you sell a business? We don't care about the valuation and what you got. That's not our business. But it's interesting to hear about you had enough money to say, well, I've got choices now in life.
Yeah.
What happens when you get that kind of I've got choices moment?
Well, you and I actually had I said to you just about 10 minutes ago, it's never done until it's done.
Exactly.
And when you're selling your own business, it is never done until it's done. And actually, really amusingly, the day that we sold, I turned around to the guy I founded the business with and said, "What does your wife think about this?" He said, "Oh, I haven't told her." I'm going,
Whoa.
"Okay."
Wow.
So classic. And, but
I'll tell her when I get home. Okay.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, but it's very difficult then to properly prepare for that transition, I think. And I find it really difficult, to be honest. I find it, quite, just the challenging of, okay, I was this and now I'm not this. And what am I and what am I going to do? And
Yeah.
will I ever be able to work again?
Yeah.
Will,
And you were
will,
young.
will join me or am I an entrepreneur or, what actually is it? And it did take me a while to kind of work my way through that and understand exactly what it was. So it was quite, it was a really, it was both, there's a yin and yang to all of these things. It was very positive and I felt, very successful in some respects, but also I felt that, oh, look, I've abandoned a whole bunch of my friends and
Mm,
colleagues and, at very short notice. And actually, what on earth does the future hold for me?
yeah.
Uh, and so it's a real psychological mix, and people who do exit do need to think about that. And I've spoken to a number of entrepreneurs who sold their businesses, and they have similarly, not all of them, but a lot of them have similarly just struggled with that sense of crikey, what's next and what
Yeah.
purpose do I have? And, we'll get on to where I am today, no doubt, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
conversation, but that's what it was. The transaction itself was actually pretty simple. It was, we approached it with a full open book. We're going to share as much data as we possibly can to our acquirers and,
Were you well
partic-
prepared? So again, they won't know what it looks like. The
yeah,
preparation, were you like kind of a year in advance preparing everything so that you had a data room almost ready?
yeah, yeah, absolutely that. And that's a great question, Mike, because I would say you can get approach out of the blue,
Yeah.
for and okay, you can't have a full up to date data room, but you've got to be thinking about what would a data room look like. And actually, frankly, that means what does proper professional business management look like? It means having all your contracts,
Yep.
having all your contracts, your employment policies, your board packs, your financial data in easily accessible chunks, and set aside so that you can go, yeah, yeah, I can access that. And also thinking about, whatever sector you're in has its own nuances, but buyers will want a certain type of data and a certain amount of information based on their sector. And you've got to be ready with that. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes they feel there's no doubt about that. And you just go, crikey, that'll take a bit of work. But really, you should be thinking about what do I need to have? How does it need to look? And how accessible is it? And have that very, very, uh, just really professionally prepared.
Yes.
You to hold it all in the data room, but you've got to know where it is on your servers and think about it in those compartmentalized, pre-prepared blocks. That's what
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Very good advice. And again, when you're structuring, I mean, it could be much later in the day for many people listening, and for some, there won't be an exit. And I think there's a whole different discussion around, everyone seems to want to sell their business. And I'm like, well, sometimes actually, you're better off keeping it. Some businesses, if they're generating enough EBITDA and dividends, and they're in a certain sector, which is, has got resilience against certain
Yeah.
external conditions, sometimes you want to keep it.
Yeah.
And sometimes, to your point, Garrett, about purpose and who you are, sometimes you
Yeah.
want to keep it because that's who you are. That
Yeah.
it kind of defines you.
Yeah.
But for those people that do want to exit, how do you structure the piece around, I'm not going to get all the cash up front on day one. So what's your advice around that, around thinking through, well, how does that kind of structure work to get the money in my hands?
Um, that's so earnouts are always tricky. And, you and I know this.
Absolutely.
We're both,
Absolutely.
we both experience this.
We have.
I think, I think that firstly, I think what's really important in an earnout is crystal clear simplicity of what the metrics are.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, earnouts can be gamed. That's just the way. So you want to structure them so that everybody knows what they are, and you want to, if you're in the business, you want to be able to monitor that. If you're outside the business, you want information that allows you to really assess where the business is going to allow you to achieve the earnout. What I would say to people is, your day one amount, bank it, and almost to some degree go, the earner is the icing,
Exactly.
the chair.
Yeah, I would agree.
But once you relinquish control of the business of in a majority fashion or in a total fashion, then you have relinquished control of the business. And it's important to recognize that the earner it is to some degree taken out of your hands. But I think that try to negotiate something that's very, very clearly objective and simply measured. No, many people will say, well, that's EBITDA. And you go, okay, right. But if I hire a bunch of new people
Exactly.
and they're all earning 150K, then your EBITDA is gone. And so, it's, there is always even, and by the way, I'm not suggesting any malice or bad faith. I'm just saying that some people take on the business and go, actually, you know what, this doesn't quite work for us in this structure. And we need to put in this cost because the earnout's over 2 years, but we're thinking about 10 years.
Yep.
And we need to start work today to make sure that we deliver in 10 years what we need.
Exactly.
And cost today.
Because they need to invest in growth. Rightly.
Exactly that. So be happy with what you're getting on day one.
Yep.
Create simplicity and metrics and get hold of data and think about all the ways that the earnout may be affected or that those metrics may be affected and what levers of control you can retain over those within the period of the earnout.
Exactly.
And, but also when you're selling a business, you got to do due diligence on the buyer. And if you got an earnout and just understand, do they pay? For me, actually, my philosophy always was, if I'm paying an earnout, it means I'm doing well. So I don't really care. That's, I don't really want to chip somebody just for the sake of chipping. I want to actually have the business performing well enough for me to be comfortable that I'm earning the cash and that's, I'm able to pay it. So, there are many ways of thinking about it.
I think doing DD on the buyer is critical. Absolutely. And it's not just the kind of financial DD that you can do, but it's about who they are as people. Find out what their history is, their track record when they buy companies. Do they pay their earnouts? Like you said, you're like, well, if it's growing, it's going well. Why would I want to mess around chipping away at the earnout? It's done well, so I'm happy. Not everyone's like that, though, Garrett, as we know.
They're not. Exactly that. Yeah.
So what happened next? So now we've kind of like, you've sold the business, you've taken some time out. What was the next stage?
So the next thing, well, actually, I took a year out, and the first couple of months of that were, I found quite stressful, and then actually I got into it pretty well, and really good conversations with people about actually just taking a break and thinking. And then I was really incredibly fortunate that I had decided, and I don't understand why I thought that this would be possible. I was phenomenally lucky in many ways to try and get into private equity as either an operating partner or just as an exec in private equity. And, you know, I mean, I've found almost no people like me who have done that at the lower mid-market scale.
Yep.
So,
Very rare.
yeah, I was fortunate, but I did burn a lot of shoe leather. I met a large number of maybe 20, 25 PE firms, you know, and tried to work out what I might be able to bring to them. And I was invited to join a firm called Bridges Ventures. It's now called Bridges Fund Management, which is an impact investor. And I joined as an entrepreneur in residence, which was effectively a part-time job, just for them to test out whether I had a clue and what I was like to work with. And I got stuck into one of their assets that was not doing quite as planned.
Mm-hmm.
I was quickly able to help that, and ultimately, we sold that asset for over 4.5 times money about 3 or 4 years later, which was, you know, and it could have gone under. So it was, you know, when I came in, it was it definitely needed some work done, some new management team. And so I was an entrepreneur in residence for 6 months there, and then I was invited to become a partner at Bridges, which is fantastic. And actually, when I was doing that, I did a shift. So obviously, you know, my career had been in the vet sector, and I was actually just, you know, pretty much I wouldn't say done with it, because that's not quite the case.
No.
But I wanted to try different things, and I was keen to expand my just challenge myself and find new areas that would be interesting and actually give me, you know, purpose. You mentioned the word purpose earlier.
Yep.
And so I found myself then looking with one of my colleagues there, who would, like, as I said to him, like, you're the brains and I'm the brawn, and you know, we make a good team. And we did, and we invested in.
By the way, listeners, that's entirely not true. But
so I'm afraid
that's how you positioned it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we looked at a lot of social care businesses and invested in a couple of social care businesses. So social care is looking after people with, say, learning disability or elderly care, or people with mental health problems, or all of those things together. And I just love that sector. I really, really feel that, you know, private equity is, of course, in some cases rightly maligned, but actually the work that we do in social care, you can't get it right every time.
Yeah.
No, be honest. But what you're trying to do in any social care business, no matter what the ownership structure is, whether it's local authority or family or private equity or whatever it is, or listed company, is you are trying to ensure that the culture is correct so that you have systemic good levels of care or excellent levels of care. But if you've got 2,000 people on the ground every day providing care, and you have one rogue operator out of those 2,000, then you can put the systems and monitoring in place to protect the people who are being cared for, the colleagues and the business. But the stuff will happen.
Exactly.
But I thoroughly enjoyed that. And spent, I think it was there about 6 years at Bridges, and then was approached by a larger PE fund, August Equity, and to join them and build their, reignite, I suppose, their social care franchise.
Yeah.
And so I joined them as a partner and worked on healthcare, social care, education, did some stuff, actually, did an animal health investment as well. Okay. And I was there for 4.5 years and retired from August in the end of March this year.
Okay.
Loved it there, brilliant firm. And actually what was interesting for me as well, because I had bigger funds than Bridges, I was able to make larger investments and have what I felt was greater impact upon people and the quality that we were of care that we were providing. So, you know, I spent 11 years. So in kind of summary, as where I spent 10 years as a veterinary surgeon, 10 years as an entrepreneur, 11 years as a PE partner.
Yep.
about that another 10 years of something, and then I'll have
Exactly.
another 10 something else. So I'm kind of kicking off on the 10 years of, whatever it is
The
that
next
I'm going
stage.
to, and trying to work that out.
I mean, interesting around sector expertise. So lots of entrepreneurs, this is kind of a very popular discussion around, do you specialize in a sector as an individual? Do you specialize in a skill? As a buyer, how much do you value sector expertise when you buy a business? All of that. And, do you have a passion for a certain sector? What's your view on the kind of the sector piece and how important it is as an entrepreneur, but also maybe as a buyer?
Um, well, I think let me put it in a kind of the way that as a PE guy, I might look at it in terms of board composition. That might be
Yes.
an abuse. If you have a board and you've got a management team, might be an entrepreneur, might be you put in a professional management team, as
Yep.
in people who come different backgrounds and are managers, rather than the initial, creative
Founder.
create.
Yeah.
When you're putting the board together and you're thinking, well, we need some non-executive skills, the two things you think about are, one, I need a non-executive chair, and they don't necessarily need an industry expertise. They need to know how to run a board, mentor a CEO and the rest of the exec team,
Yep.
but particularly the CEO, but be it an entrepreneur or not. And so you're looking for that particular set of chair skills.
Okay.
However, you might bring in as well somebody who's got real industry specific sector skills,
Yep.
because actually, you need to know that you're going in the right direction. So chairing the board is one thing, but strategically going in the right direction, having the contacts is also incredibly important. And, if you got a CEO or exec team that doesn't have that depth of sector expertise, then
Yes.
that would be helpful. But when I first left, when I first sold my company and was hawking myself around the Mayfair PE funds, basically people would say, you're the vet guy. And I really, really, really hated it. Really made that my hackles rise.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm the guy who's done M&A, a buy and build, multi-site professional services, la 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 la.
Exactly.
Subsequently, I've been involved in businesses that have, dentistry, veterinary, consultant dermatologists,
Training.
psychiatrists, so, and it's multi-site,
Yeah.
professional services, buy and build, or de novo site setup. So I've got experience across that actually my role at Pet Doctors, which is my business with David and David, gave me. I've kind of just slightly stepped to the right and done it in either healthcare or social care.
But interestingly, about the label, Garret, a really old friend of mine years ago, Matthew, years and years and years ago, he was a kind of ex-IBM salesman of the year, very capable salesperson, really interesting guy as well, just like a fun guy to be with, but quite challenging, quite tough. And he said, Mike, when people meet you, and if they haven't seen you for a couple of years, they label you because it's a shortcut. So we have to, we find a need to label people. He said, people know you for who you were, not for who you are. And it kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because the label is, oh, you were the vet guy. You ran a vet's business. Because that's what they knew about you, about your past.
Yeah.
But who you are is an operator, an M&A expert, someone who's moved from being a clinical person into being a business leader that's going to buy and build. They don't know that. So you have to build a bridge, I believe, from what you're labeled as to actually what your skill sets are with evidence today.
Yeah.
And we've got to do that for others. We have to build the bridge for them. Otherwise, they'll just go, "Are you the vet guy?"
Yeah. I agree. And actually, I mean, the other, the old chestnut is that, if you don't control your own career, then somebody else will do it for you. And similarly, if you don't control your own message, somebody else will do it for you, and you've got to work on that. So actually now I would guess that most people who know me in the or knew me maybe because I'm a has-been now in the private equity space, uh, that he's the social care guy, and
Yep.
I'm pretty cool with that, and I'm going to try and redefine myself again, and let's see how it goes.
Yep.
But if you want to get out of a sector that you're in because you want to try something different and move into an adjacent sector or something completely different, you've got to think about how you're going to present it and what, as you say, what is the bridge to that, that method.
And how are you going to how do you get people to believe you? It's got to be an evidence base. It can't just be a bunch of words. It has to be some evidence behind it. So Garret, this has been amazing. I'm very conscious of your time. Couple of messages. What would you say to people that are they're £1 million turnover, it's gone well, they're starting to build a management team, they're thinking about an exit in the next kind of 3 to 5 years. What would be your kind of advice to them? The 2 or 3 things you'd say, focus on this. Not guaranteed, but they're probably things to help you on your journey.
I would say, well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting because I've come across a number of businesses over my time that have been really successful that are maybe 3 million EBITDA businesses. And when I say, oh, let me see your management accounts, they don't have any.
Wow.
And so be professional.
Yeah.
That's the first I would. I know.
Be professional.
Do it properly.
Yeah.
No matter what size you are, do it. Have monthly management accounts. You can, I remember doing it myself.
Yeah.
Setting up it on QuickBooks or whatever it was I was using at the time.
Or on Xero, whatever you use. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And produce monthly management accounts because it allows you to manage your business.
Yes.
And that may, for a lot of people will think that I'm being patronizing, but, I've seen it in very large businesses. And actually, I think the real important bit about that is by managing that, you manage your cash flow. And I really believe that the next couple of years are going to be tough for businesses of all sizes.
I agree.
And cash is king. And if you don't control your cash flow, then something can happen.
Correct.
And what when I left August, I mean, one of the things I know when I kind of get my old man leaving speech was I said that, firstly, inflation is coming. This is so like Christmas. So inflation's coming. Interest rates are going to go up and businesses are going to look a lot different and business models are going to look a lot different with 5% interest rates than they do with, 0.25% interest rates.
Exactly.
And that's already coming to pass. But the other thing, and Mike, you and I have been around, long enough to been through a couple of these cycles is that not actually the stuff that you expect to happen that gets you. It's the stuff you go, gosh, that is really interesting. That I didn't expect that. Now, be it that the bank, you're in a good place, but the bank calls in your loan just because the bank has to make a decision.
Exactly.
Or you find that your suppliers go bust and suddenly you haven't got a supply chain that works. Yeah.
Or you breach a covenant, you breach a banking covenant, and the bank says, you've got 3 months. Give me the workout plan. If it fails, I'll take over control of your business.
Exactly that. And the very friendly person that you were speaking to suddenly doesn't answer the phone and you're into the workout guys. And
that's right. And they're not friendly.
They're not friendly. So professionalize management. And, I've been phenomenally lucky throughout my career to have had really good people beside me in my businesses, be it in Pet Doctors with David and David, be it at Bridges with, people I was actually out with for dinner and drinks last week, people in August who were dinner and drinks with the week before, and I've been really fortunate to get people around you who are really, really super strong to not to just replicate what you're doing, but to augment or fill in the gaps or whatever it is. And I think also there are, both you and I have kind of mentor and help people who are, who need, just a little bit of guidance occasionally.
That's right.
And so reach out into your networks and build networks because you'd be amazed what, and we've got history of this ourselves.
We have.
And we've
definitely
got, I mean, you're just having a conversation. Somebody says, oh, I think you should talk to this person.
Yeah.
And off it goes. And it's not necessarily so, but it's not a, you need to give me something. It's much more of, we are friends in this world together. let's see what we can, let's just have a glass of wine and chat. And
I mean, what
start
listeners won't know, Garret was the kind of enabler that transformed my life. I mean, that's quite remarkable. No, you were, and it was that conversation. You were talking to someone who was looking to buy a business of a certain type in a certain area. And they said, oh, who should I talk to? And you said, talk to Mike. He's got one of those. Looks like that. Have a chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ended up selling that business. And that was remarkable. I mean, remarkable. And you gave freely. You just said, go and talk to Mike.
And we'd had a drink or dinner a few nights before, and you were telling me all about your business.
That's right. So reach out to people. Yeah. So reach out to people. You're right. Build the network, because you never know what connections they have and conversations they're having.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And actually, Mike, I mean, it sounds strange, the stage of my career, but that's happened twice to me over the past month, in terms of me thinking of, I'm building the blocks for what I want to be and the purpose I want to have. And, just going out for a glass of wine with somebody, and then a few days later, they're going, I just met so-and-so and they would love to chat to you about this. Go, oh, really? Yeah. And something, left field comes in that could be, fascinating. So
absolutely.
Doesn't stop.
I did it on Tuesday at Edinburgh Airport, waiting for a plane. Rang a friend of mine who I've done bits of business with over the years. The next thing he says is, I was thinking about you, Mike. There's something that I've got. Would you be interested in X?
Yeah.
Oh, and he may have rung me anyway, but I rang him and the connection was remade. Garret, amazing. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to talk to us. And thanks for your insights. It's been amazing. If anyone wants to kind of find your kind of profile or get in contact, what's the best way of seeing what you do?
LinkedIn, really. I'm not on anything else. So that's probably the best way.
Very good. You'll find him, Garret Turley, on LinkedIn. There's only one.
Always.
Thanks, Garret.
Okay, Mike. Thank you.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. We hope you learned something new and useful about entrepreneurship. We'd love it if you could rate or review us on the app you use to listen to this on. Thanks.